The following podcast may contain spoilers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Treading the Path of Heaven. I am Jonathan Kinney, the host of the podcast, and I am joined by...
I'm Richard.
But unfortunately, this is a rather heavy episode. Those of you that are in our Discord or follow us are probably already aware of this, but in July of 2021, there was a fire at the residence of myself, Bill, and Seth. And Bill and Seth, unfortunately, both passed away in that fire. It was a incredibly tragic event, one that I'm still kind of dealing with the trauma of in as healthy a way as I can. I'm in therapy and all that sort of thing. But it is hard to fill the gap that they have left in my life. But part of, honoring them and getting back to normal life is to continue and to walk down our paths. And this is something that both them and Richard and I cared very deeply about. So we want to honor their memory by continuing on. And so we're going to. We want to keep this podcast going. We want to keep reviewing these books that we love, and in some cases don't. And we want to be there with all of you. So thank you for all of you that have supported us through all this time, especially those on our Discord. You guys left an overwhelming number of supportive comments and emotions that came through to us and helped us to put some sense into this tragedy. So we really appreciate all of your support. We may miss some things or do something that's a little weird because it's been a while since we've recorded. But we appreciate each and every one of you that's listening. And we hope to still bring you the same level of quality and love into each of these episodes that we've had all before. So one last time, thank you all. And with that, we'll get into the meat of the episode. This week, we're going to be reviewing a rather interesting novel. The translated title is Above Your Head. It can be found on Wuxia World. And it's being translated by God Seth. The author I would read the name of, but it's written in Korean, so I've got no idea.
Let me get the translation for this guy's name, because normally they write it out, right? But
yeah, it seems unusual that it's not translated.
It's literally over your head.
Oh, okay, that checks out, and also makes a lot of sense for this book. So.
Let me set myself on this, because I got put on Above Your Head by you, Kenny.
Yeah.
And I was reading it, and this is the first time in a long time I had to tap out in the first 50 chapters of a novel, let alone a Korean novel. I had to tap out. I could. This story had so much nonsense in it.
It is chaos. The beginning is incomprehensible, and I think the author has a series of works, and I think a lot of them are tied together. So maybe if I'd read some of his other stuff, I would have been understanding what was happening sooner. But I have a feeling that this is just his writing style, if I'm being entirely honest.
Yeah, it's supposed to be connected to another thing with references to it, right? Like, what is it? It's not Starry Connor. I can't remember what the name of it was. This linked to. I just know that the way this man writes, he likes to make references to things, and he likes to. Oh yeah, he also makes one of the most infuriating main characters I've ever experienced in my life.
Oh, he's the worst, and he's incomprehensible, and that is half the reason I tried to get Richard to read this book, because I wanted someone else to It was almost like, am I dreaming? Can someone else look at this and tell me if I'm actually going insane?
It's definitely a fever dream of every anime trope possible, and honestly, reading it, I just wanted to like I've never wanted to buy an editor for a writer before to get them to please fix whatever was going on in your brain here. You could have done this a lot different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's. So the main character, like you're saying, the infuriating main character, goes by the name of Kwon Daiha. And he is in high school, and he has always had a secret ability, which is that he can see people's like name and titles. And if no one has anything that's particularly impressive about them or hasn't done anything that is a big deal, then their titles are they're just based on their state of being. So it could be like, Stephanie eating lunch or whatever. And the more he pays attention to it, the more detail that title will go into, which he's learned ways to use to his advantage. He's really good at doing diagnostic issues because he can just cheat basically to do it. And you assume with a name like Above Your Head, this is going to be the main thing that gets used, like the pin or the main character ability that is leveraged throughout the entire story to make this an interesting read. But you'd be wrong, and you realize that you're wrong very early in, like within the first 10 chapters, because within that time, he's already introduced like 6 new characters that all have their own stories and feel like they're out of different stories. We've got a magical transforming girl. We've got a cold-hearted assassin.
Alien.
We've got a space alien
who's super hot, by the way. Keep on everyone is main character hot, or they have like Muram, martial cultivator, Korean martial art guy who would be the main character of a battle manga that just shows up.
Yeah,
and like you got the pretty boy brother. And
the only one who's not remarkable is the main character.
But no, he's good at everything he touches, though.
Yeah,
and impossibly good at everything he does.
Well, I mean, don't forget his dad, who is the perfect human, apparently.
Oh yeah,
who the entire universe respects and comes to for advice because he knows everything. I love the story of Daiha. Like, he played video games all his life, and he was very proud of that. So he was fighting his dad, and he completely destroys his dad the first time, and then his dad starts to come back a little bit the second time, and then he almost beats him the third time, and he does beat him the fourth, and does beat him the fifth, and so he's like, all right, cool, I won 3-2, and we're never playing games again.
Yeah, I can't let you have this one thing over me, Pops.
This is the one W I have in my life against you. I'm gonna hold that.
Like, the father definitely gives me big, like, Chinese ascended cultivator reached godhood status style. The way they describe him being the ultimate doctor, the ultimate this guy, the ultimate spy, the ultimate everything. The spirit of Earth wants to fuck him.
Yeah, no, really badly. And tries frequently. Not that you see that much of that, because all of these things that we're introducing become immediately irrelevant, like chapters later, and that happens constantly. Like, the story, when you start reading it, has no direction. There's just constant character introductions. You sit there and you start going through the story, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand where he's going with this, and then the premise of the story immediately changes. Constantly. Yeah, no. So like Daiha's going along on his normal fucking high school life, and all of a sudden, magical girl and this he sees an assassin who has the title Human Slayer, which he knows is a big deal because he has a title that's like Insect Slayer or some shit like that. Fly Slayer, because he killed like 100 flies. So he knows that this person in front of him is a person who has killed humans before, and so he's terrified of her. Because like all the main character wants is to just live like a totally chill, normal life. Like, he has no desire to do anything special. I think because he just got so frustrated with being around his dad that he assumed he had no talent.
You know, when I think about it here, I feel like this guy watched Psyche K, or read Psyche K, and he was like, oh wait, what if the main character's family's insane? And we'll have a character that just wants to be negative about literally everything, despite reality slapping him in the face over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly fair. But magical girl shows up, and this other dude shows up to like fight off the Human Slayer. So that ends up being okay. And he just like walks away from that. And he's like, well, that was a weird thing. Let me go to the arcade.
And while walking to the arcade, he runs across the girl he ran into earlier, and she's just like surprised he can see her and sense her.
And I think it says something about like a Starfleet or like Celestial Idol or some shit as her title.
Yeah.
And so that's like, you're like, what? Okay, so she's an alien. What the fuck's going on here? And she's so surprised that she can see him, but also doesn't know who she is, that she becomes incredibly interested in him.
Of course.
Because as her title says, she's an idol. But so he goes to the arcade. He plays a Gundam-esque game where he has to fight against, like, it's like a Last Starfighter kind of thing.
Except he's deliberately picking the weakest possible suit and challenging the hardest thing possible.
Yeah, he's bad for like one game, and then he figures out the controls after struggling a little bit, and then once he's done that, he becomes the best person at the game that's ever possibly existed. To the point where he's like, oh, I'm going to use a ball Gundam and defeat all of the major villains from every arc thrown in the same fight.
Really, though, he's using the equivalent of a ball to fight like prototype and super cruisers and super carriers as a ball. Like, come on, man.
It's insane. And like, I actually really do like that whole like arc, because what happens is that it's basically a recruitment program for this vast fleet of aliens that exists outside of Earth. And it turns out that Earth is like basically, in Star Trek terms, a civilization that has not yet earned the right for first contact. So they're like, aliens come and visit there, but they hide under like these invisibility cloaks where like they either seem mundane or can't be seen at all, depending on who you are. And they just kind of like vacation here.
Sightseeing, enjoying our food. Apparently our food's pretty good in the universe.
Yeah, so, and of course, you know, his dad lives on this planet, which is apparently significant enough to warrant it being a real planet. Although it does get revealed like within like 15 chapters that actually that guy's not his dad. He's just like a foster parent that's taken over responsibilities for some unknown entity as of yet.
Yeah, apparently his mom, he married his already pregnant mother, who died in childbirth or something. I don't know.
It was weird. Although
but they didn't really like give it the problem is, right, what I'm saying right now sounds like, oh, this sounds pretty cool, but I'm telling you guys, it's not. It's
done incomprehensibly.
It's not delivered.
I can only talk about it this way because I read the whole story and I actually understand what happened. Like, he does explain all of these things. He's just like, no. I'm just going to throw 8 plot lines that are all going on simultaneously at you. I'm not going to differentiate between them. I'm not going to tell you which ones are important until it is revealed that which ones are important. And like, some of these plot lines are set up for exposition. Some of these plot lines are set up for the second volume. And we're only going to talk about the first volume in this because that's the only one I've completed.
Yeah, they did it like typical, what is it, webtoon style, where it's 2 seasons.
Yeah,
and it was written in seasons.
Yeah, the first one is 116 chapters plus an epilogue and a few side stories, which mostly go into the other dude that saved him when the magical girl was there, who has like guns and is like a super commando.
Yeah.
But that's not relevant to the story.
I would have liked to have, I would have loved to have read a novel about the people who have been ordained to assist the main character.
Yeah, because they're all more interesting than him until you realize that they're not.
Yeah. But like, they have like plot lines that kind of like when they're around, you're like, okay, I can imagine this guy's story was super fun and made sense to read without needing to.
Long story short, the main character Daiha gets so good at this random game that he posts a score that's literally unbelievable. So much to the point that when the people are looking at it and reviewing it, they don't have actual footage. They just get the score that happened. So they assume that rather than him actually earning the score, which he did earn legitimately. Also, this is also kind of like a training program because these mechs that are in the game are like real mechs that exist in space and are what are used for like fights in Space Wars.
Well, like they can't believe that he did it, and the main character won't explain himself. for some reason. So
Well, because he doesn't want to be a shining star in the universe. He just wants to live a normal, comfortable life.
But now they think you're a god hacker from a backwater planet. Like,
so they try to hire him as like a super hacker, and he doesn't know anything.
Guy.
He doesn't know anything about alien systems.
Oh my god.
So he shows up, and his dad, like, they've talked to his dad, and his dad's like, all right, cool. You've basically revealed yourself a little bit here. So now it's time for you to go into space. You're joining the army. And he's like, I don't want to join the army. He's like, too bad. I already agreed on your behalf.
Yeah. And like the scene of him being recruited, right? Suddenly all of these random ass characters show up, and he's being attacked. He's about to be killed by all these people. All these like super clans and monsters and aliens, all these groups we know nothing about are coming for him. And then suddenly you have like martial arts guy shows up, and magical girl shows up, and the alien pulls out her ray gun and shoots one of the guys. And like,
yeah. And then his father shows up, and he's like, oh yeah, and all these people, they're going to be going with you. 2 of them are your bodyguards. It's fine. Don't worry about it. See you never, maybe.
Yeah. As he like Earth itself in his sanctuary home is holding back the attacks of the other things.
So, and it sounds like we've described a lot that's happening, but this is literally the first 19 chapters of the book. Then immediately he is thrust into space, where we get to see him doing his job as an engineer, which he can't really do, but he just goes into like a thing that has like 1,000 mechs in it, and he's like, he looks at the titles, everything. He's like, 972 has a broken actuator. 15 has a problem with its programming. Everything else looks good. And they'll check it, and he's right, and everything else is fine. So they just start trusting him. They don't know why he has this ability.
And they're like, oh, we'll just let the AI repair it. He just tells you what's broken. And the energy being guy, the multiple 1,000-year-old energy being guy who's the leader of the engineers, just like, oh, cool, you have an interesting ability. And passively.
So then we're put on this like Star Trek-esque like buddy joke thing where they're just all like playing around and figuring out what's going on. And that lasts a whole 5 chapters before then, he's on a battleship working for a military. So they get attacked by people that are way outside their power level to defeat. There are like things that have tiers of power, and they are relatively low on that scale, other than like the one dude that is piloting their thing. Cause there's people known as like transcendents in this universe. All of this is being introduced at about the same speed I'm introducing it to you. There's no explanation or foreshadowing of these things. He's just like starts talking about new things that you haven't heard about and that aren't relevant.
I'm gonna be real, like in this part of the novel, right? For real, the way they're introducing it, I got more context for Star Trek Xbox Live than I did for the actual shit that matters to the plot. And then like they have the reoccurring jokes of the magical girl who's basically a fake character, not believing that aliens and shit really exist.
But while simultaneously living in a very real magical girl world.
Oh yeah. And then like you have other characters who's just like, oh yeah, I'm an alien with science. I don't believe magic exists. And then like the Chi guy doesn't believe in any of the other stuff. He only believes in like martial prowess.
But it turns out they're all real and all operating simultaneously and independently of each other.
God
and
damn it.
It's so convoluted and confusing. So they start being attacked by these like, enemy aliens essentially. And like, I think the leader is like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and he's fighting the captain of the ship who's like a polar bear.
Oh yeah.
Why? I don't know, but that's what it is. So they're like going off and doing like straight up like Chinese book top tier cultivator fight off in the distance as the ships are fighting each other, and the enemy's fleet way outweighs them. But it's cool because we have, as you remember, the guy who's got a score of billions in a game that's designed to get like a score of 10,000 running around, and he finds the other one remarkable thing that's on this ship, which is a broken suit of armor known as Ares, which is basically like one of like the divine mechs in the world, in the universe. It's like literally one of the most powerful artifacts that exists, but it's just his head or his heart or something. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. I remember he thought he just like figured out there was a doorway here that he wasn't allowed in. He made himself in, and he just like casually talked to this godlike mech thing.
Yeah, and then he's like, hey, the godlike mech, his special ability, he's got a few, but the most relevant one here is that he has the ability to control weapons and armor, and in this case, mechs count. So he basically hijacks this, he starts telling this machine to do stuff, and the machine's like, I wouldn't do that, but then starts doing it and doesn't know why. And then through using this guy, he's basically able to remote pilot mechs well enough to win the fight that they're in, or at least provide enough time and support that the polar bear dude can get back and actually fix shit.
Mm-hmm.
And in this battle, he earns the moniker of Spectre, because it's just an empty goddamn mech that's fighting and winning the fight basically by itself. There's another fight that comes up shortly after this, or it's like an escalation of the fight. I don't exactly remember, but he basically gets kidnapped in that fight and gets brought on side, like to the side of the aliens. So all the stuff that we were learning and all the characters that we were learning on the ship are now completely irrelevant again. So everything you knew about the story is no longer there. And then he basically gets put in a torture chamber and has to figure out his way out, which he's now learned again. As we've started to kind of figure out, he has more abilities than just his title ability, which has almost become irrelevant at this point. And so he meets up with this, and I don't know, it's around here, I think, that you stopped reading, Richard.
Yeah. You're getting to the part where I had to tap out.
So he's in the torture chamber. Eventually, because of the magical girl and a few other factors, he finds a way to escape. And part of that is that he meets this girl that's a member of a race called Legion. And Legion are basically these omnipotent machine beings, more or less. They're not omnipotent, but they're omnipotent in the realm of machines, that they can just either shut down electronics completely or completely control them at their whim. And so he goes up to this girl and just like orders her to do a thing, and she's like, no, you're a trash being, but then starts doing it, much like Ares did, which we still don't know the reason why that is at this point. But she realizes that maybe he's an answer to some problem that she's been having, and also she doesn't know why she's following his orders. But between the people that have come back on the ship to try and save him, her powers, and his own newly found kind of superpowers, he after a long period of time, escapes this ship and gets back to the old ship that he was on and meets with the polar bear, who now has realized that he's a much bigger deal than he was. Also, when he met Ares the first time, he was like, yo, Ares, apparently you can just do anything I order you to do, so recollect all the parts of your body. And unbeknownst to both him and Ares, the parts of his body just start flying towards him at that moment to be recollected at a later, more meaningful time.
Oh, man.
So he realizes through the course of all this that he has basically some, there are secrets to him that he doesn't know. He discovers like in his inner space, like that there's like a key that's in a lock, and he doesn't turn it, but he doesn't know what it really represents. And again, it sounds like I'm skipping things, but I'm really not. Things are like pretty much being presented what feels like at this speed and with this little foreshadowing. So he actually goes out and he gets in an actually good mech, because I think he steals one from the enemy ship. And because he has a good mech that actually has good abilities, he just dominates everyone on this field. And so the celestial idol that we were talking about way back when, basically, she's running away from home and has joined the military because she doesn't want to get married and actually take on the responsibilities.
Oh yeah, isn't she like the princess of some empire, one of the galactic empires or some shit?
The Leonhardt Empire.
Celestia, but right?
Yeah, Celestia is her name.
Celestia, the celestial idol.
And she became an idol not based on her abilities as a princess. That was what she did after she left the royal family to kind of build her own legitimacy. And then she's got a fan club that includes some of the most terrifying beings in the universe. There's just like a few transcendents that are like really into her. So they just stand for her so hard that she has real protection. This book is insane. It's just insane from beginning to end. And at the beginning, I was like, this makes no sense, right? I'm not crazy. And it didn't until suddenly it does, because they go to the Imperial capital and there's a bunch of, political stuff that gets exposed. You start to learn about their family. Oh shit. There was a person I totally forgot to mention that happened way earlier. I think he was the one that actually kidnapped the main character. It's beings that are above transcendence, but because they're above transcendence, they're like, it's almost like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, where like he is a being that was sent from a higher plane to like fix problems that exist. but because of that, they have incredibly extreme restrictions on what they can and can't do with their powers. So like he can't do anything unless like he has a mission, and unless it is directly involved with that mission, he's not allowed to do anything. But if he could like flick his finger and wipe out half of existence, sort of a thing. So he's the one that kidnapped him. And he is, it turns out, as you learn more about the Lionheart Empire, basically one of the major advisors to this family. Like he has decided a lot of things and like been manipulating their birth lines and stuff because there's like a person that's supposed to be born to them in the future, and he's relevant for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been getting people together in the correct ways to like maintain this line of history. So they go to the capital, they start dealing with all of the political intrigue of the Lionheart Empire, and Celestia is like in a not a great place because of a lot of different factors, but mostly she just doesn't have the political clout in her family to deal with things that in the way they need to be done. And there's a lot of nobles that have power as well that kind of affect stuff. But this guy, because he is beholden to the Empire or the Lionheart Empire, shows up again and is like dealing with stuff and like fucks with Daiha again. And it's like, it feels very manipulative and like distinctly targeted at Daiha throughout this entire thing. And so Daiha realizes at some point, and I don't remember exactly when he has this realization, but he starts to realize who he actually is. And the answer to that question is he is the son of a literal god.
Really?
Yes. And specifically, gods in this world are very much based on like the amount of stuff that is affected within their domain represents their power.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you had a god of humans, the more humans there were and the more humans that believed in him and the more things he had power over because of what he is as a god, the stronger overall you are. And there's like different tiers of gods.
Oh, so it's just like Forgotten Realms, like where the power of the deity is based on the portfolio.
Pretty much.
The more vast the portfolio, the more powerful they are, the higher tier they are.
Mm-hmm. And the god that he is the son of is the god of information.
Oh, of course.
And which in this world includes all like mechanical computers and AIs.
Oh man.
Which is why when he talks to Ares, he has power over him. When he talks to a member of Legion, he can just control them. Oh, and he has basically gotten this Legion girl who is herself a like universe relevant power to be a bodyguard for him by basically commanding her to do so. But she tries to avoid him as much as possible because if he gives her orders, she can't turn them down. But she hates it, so she's like playing it off like she's doing it intentionally, but also because of who he is, he can't die because she and her race will die because of the information god disappearing. But the information god is basically like because this is a world of like a sci-fi world in many cases, like the information god is upsettingly powerful. And so he basically turns the key at one point to unlock who he is, and then he like that not only gives him his full breadth of powers, but also lets him know who he truly is. And so he has this like 7 or 8 chapter arc where he basically, through pure intelligence and force of will, overthrows the Lionheart Empire and gives it to Celestia, who he marries. And like,
what? That escalated so fast.
It did really fast. And because he's like this royal escort, he gets this gun that's basically from a scientific a level of civilization that is like a tier above the current civilization of the world. So it's like got principles behind it that they don't even fucking understand. And so he goes and does all these things to this coup of the Lionheart Empire to give the crown to take the crown basically. But in doing so, he like propagates like a horrific genocide.
Oh, what?
That he feels that he hates. Like it was the best way to accomplish the things he had set out to do. And because he was super intelligent and had like it gave him super intelligence, but he basically lost touch of what it meant to be human because he wasn't a human. He was a god. So he does this thing, like he unleashes the, sci-fi equivalent of like a nuke or a massive poison and kills a bunch of people like in a really not cool scene.
Okay. Where are they gonna? Like, why?
Because he needed to establish himself as basically a superpower, and so he did that. And then because of that, they wanted him to be king, so they forced him into marrying Celestia, so that she could then be, as with her Lionheart blood, be elevated to queen. And then with him marrying him, he would be attached to the Lionheart Empire.
Of course, political wedding.
So he does all this to basically give Celestia's claim to the crown legitimacy. Marries her, becomes like God Emperor of the Lionheart Empire, and then throws away his godhood.
Wait, what?
Yep, he decides, nope, I'm not going to be a god. I'm never going to be a god. Locks the key, throws it away, becomes a human again, and as like right before he did that, he's like, as my last thing, Celestia is now the Emperor of the Lionheart Empire, or the Empress, and we're getting divorced. Peace.
Okay.
So she's left as the Empress in power, and no one can do anything about it because they all voted for it. And then there's a whole deal with like the legion that he gives is like one of the first two legions. There's like an Adam and Eve of their race sort of a thing. And her brother has gone literally insane and is manipulating a lot of the things in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And is trying to raise himself to become the information god, which is one of the reasons why the main character had to do it, to like deal with him.
And then he stops him, but then renounces his god. But like, think about the fallout for the fact that he committed a genocide and now you're just a dude.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter because he tied up all those loose ends while he was a god.
Oh my god! What happened to his father, the information god?
Oh, he fucked off at some point.
And why did the information guy impregnate a human girl?
That's a great question.
A 16-year-old human girl?
That's a wonderful question that I don't have the answer to yet because it wasn't explained.
Oh man.
But yeah, the guy I was talking about earlier, the like super above transcendent guy who has a mission, shows up, and he had been trying to kill Daiha because for some reason he knew that Daiha was like his. He either had to defeat him or he was going to lose everything. So he had actually been breaking his oath and like using powers above the level he was supposed to, specifically to try and fuck over Daiha. And as all of this is happening and like everything is like nice and normal, he like stops time and is like, all right, now I'm going to kill you, and starts monologuing to explain his evil thing, which is that he wanted to stop being this person who was restricted. So Celestia was supposed to give birth to the body that he would then possess and live in as a person with all of his memories and some of his powers.
Okay.
But Daiha, and like time has stopped completely, but Daiha had been given that gun by Celestia as like a royal dowry sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it operates because it is like from a higher level of civilization. It can still operate in this time stopped realm. So Daiha just shoots him,
and that solves that guy.
And that guy dies. But it's pretty much been revealed that like he was manipulating the entire story up to this point. So like all of these ridiculous story threads all do come together at the end, and like everything is explained. And you just realize that the only reason why it seemed entirely incomprehensible, other than, kind of admittedly not great writing, is that it was all just going over the main character's head, and he was an unreliable narrator. He didn't know enough about stuff, so things that should have been relevant or hints weren't, because he didn't know what they were.
Because it was written this way so he could have the pun. Oh, it went over his head.
Pretty much. I feel like that is legitimately a true part of this, and was supposed to go over the heads of the viewers. Or the readers. You're supposed to read it and be like, the fuck is happening? And I love the reviews for this novel because they're all like, I stopped at chapter 40. The story makes no fucking sense. And it doesn't until like suddenly, all of a sudden, all of these conflicting, contrasting, ridiculous, random storylines come together into a whole, and you're like, oh, I understand everything that was happening up to this point. And it's like this moment of cohesion that is insane.
Oh my god, I'm looking at these reviews, and the first one I see in all caps, nothing makes sense. Everything is incoherent. Consistent and good plot is non-existent. Actual plot is awful. Possible to say if an editor essentially rewrote the entire novel because it doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time. 69 agree.
I cannot fault anyone for having that perspective because I spent the first time, like, when I was reading this, I spent most of the time being like, what in the fuck is happening? And did I read that right? Am I missing something? And then I think it was around a chapter, like something somewhere around like chapter 80 or like 75 or something, like stuff just started to click and like you started to realize all of the stuff that was happening in the past, like suddenly becomes clear as to why it was happening and who was manipulating it and what was going on. Like you start to understand all of these incoherent stories because of stuff that's happening in the future of the story. And like, you get where he was going suddenly. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And it all makes sense. It's not incomprehensible. It's just written in a way that you're like, what the fuck is going on? But it was really just like, it wasn't incomprehensible. He was just writing 9 stories at the same time.
Mm.
And it felt incomprehensible because we were constantly being thrust into the episode of like one of them, or maybe sometimes 2 or 3 of them at the same time. So like, I can't, honestly, to this day, I cannot decide whether I think this guy is a genius writer or an insane one. And it's possibly both.
I definitely get the vibe that, I'm not going to, like, honestly, it's only like 116 chapters, right? The first volume. The first half is so frenetic and schizophrenic. It's like it was written by someone on a manic trip. It's just mania reading it.
I absolutely agree.
Like you know me, I rarely tap out. I've read a lot of things that weren't the best, right? I just, it comes with the territory of reading web novels, but I just like, I wish I could go further. I would like to see what's going to, like, maybe book 2 makes book 1 in retrospect makes sense.
Oh, no. In book 2, we just go into the magical girl world. That becomes relevant.
Oh.
Yeah, the whole magical girl thing was set up for volume 2. It wasn't relevant in this story.
Oh, my God. Oh, okay. Is Daiha not the main character in book 2?
No, he still is, but he's just a normal dude. His only power is the gun he has.
Does he still have his information powers, just not God information? Or?
I think he can still do the title thing, but honestly, it's been a really long time since I read that, and I didn't get very far into volume 2 before I was like, I need to let this build up so that I can't sit here and be in the incomprehensible part of this story.
Yeah, see. I like to be. I want to be able to like recommend things, but like, because what I've personally read was suffering, I can't recommend this. No,
and I don't know that I could recommend this to anyone because it's insane. I want someone else that has read this all the way through the first volume to talk to me and be like, "Does this make any sense?" I can't tell. I think I've lost my perspective.
I'm trying to look at all of the positive reviews, right, for this for on.
There's not a lot,
and the ones that exist, right? Like, there's a guy who read 107 chapters and then quit here.
He's so close to the end of the first one.
Chapter 107, and he was like, "I'm gonna drop it," because apparently there was like something about rape. Was there actually rape in the story?
Oh yeah, no, I think Celestia was supposed to mate with the Tyrannosaurus.
Oh! Well, how does that work? Oh!
Not well and violent.
Oh, no!
But old monk dude was cool because he was just going to make sure that happened. Because that was the person he wanted to become.
He wanted to be the baby of a princess and a T-Rex.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the T-Rex was a transcendent, so...
Yeah, of course.
And she was destined or some shit. It's hard to say. It literally feels like a child is writing this at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone who has watched a fair amount of anime, has decided some things are arbitrarily cool, and is just throwing whatever the fuck he feels like at the wall and not even really seeing what sticks, just continuing to throw more shit at the wall. But that moment of cohesion where this story came together and it made sense was such a powerful moment that I honestly can't say whether I enjoyed this novel or not, because it kind of saved it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I don't know if it's worth reading to that point, because it's a lot of chapters to get through of incomprehensible garbage. I guess basically what I'm trying to say is, if anyone has read this book, please tell me.
Wait! I just got a spoiler just now. I'm reading these reviews. This guy gave a bad review because apparently the whole thing was secretly yaoi.
Oh.
The whole thing was secretly yaoi. The idol princess isn't a princess, apparently.
No. She is a princess. It was Yuri, I think would be a more accurate statement. She was just really into girls.
Oh, it's you. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's why she was trying to run away from the political marriage.
Gotcha. So she's into girls. That's cool.
Which is why he didn't actually go through with the wedding, or did, but only in so much as to actually invest her with power.
And then he could leave. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then as soon as he had tied up, like, that's why he had to commit the genocide, was because he was basically deliberately killing all of the people that could have been a threat to her rule, legitimately.
But why for Celestia's rule? Like, why is Celestia like the best to rule? Information god guy.
I think they were friends, and she was a cool person. Like, he just came to admire her throughout the course of their, like, she was also kidnapped, so they had to survive together, and I think they just came to respect each other within that thread. And he met all the other people that were in the Lionheart Empire, and they were kind of shitty, so he's like, well, no, fuck all these people. I think they did try and fuck him over somehow. Like, they tried to use some sort of like poison gas or something, and that was what like the trigger for a lot of this shit was. But I think he was basically just pissed at the Empire, so he's like, "I'm going to put you in the hands of like the one person that I don't hate." And then he basically got like a fucking world-class ship for himself. And he's like, "Yeah, that's going to be my payment, and I'm just going to use this to live a comfortable life. So peace." But of course, things never go to plan for main characters.
Of course not.
But yeah, we have basically gone through the plot of the entire first volume here. There's obviously a lot more details, and some of the action scenes where he's piloting the mech or acting as Spectre are actually pretty entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
There's some fun issues that go with that. Like, whenever he's in a mech, it'll have like random ability. Like, people have innate abilities that they can use in mechs, and mechs have innate abilities that can be utilized. And he had the ability to. He had like 3 random innate abilities a day. His weren't set.
Oh.
So he got like, sometimes he would get abilities that were like, all right, it's penetrative and long range and energy building. So he could just be like the perfect sniper that day. But sometimes he got things that are like just like 3 energy building things with no offensive abilities, and he has to just fucking struggle.
Do they ever explain why it was random for him as the son of the information god?
I think it had to do with him being the son of the information god. It wasn't like very specific on that thing. My guess is at some point down the line we'll learn more about it, but
Are you gonna pull that trigger?
I don't know, man. If I see Volume 2 ends, I might read more of this story. I don't know if I'm going to, because honestly, I don't know if I have confidence that I'm going to have that moment again in this story. I'm really curious about the other novels from this dude, if they're all written like this, or if the other ones are written more comprehensibly.
Apparently, this is like the 5th in a series that he's written.
Yeah.
And
the world is actually, as you learn more about the exposition of the world itself, like outside of Earth, because Earth is just like in a frog in a well sort of a thing. But the world building he does is fairly interesting. It just very rarely stays relevant. Like, he does a bunch of exposition and world building, and then the world changes, or another world gets revealed, or whatever it happens to be. But it was definitely an interesting read. I really wanted Richard to read it because I was like, someone else, please talk to me about this series. I don't know. It was utter incomprehensible chaos until it wasn't. And it was really about the moment that he got revealed as the son of the information god that like the plot really started to make sense.
And what chapter was that?
I mean, I think
like 90, 100.
No, it was before that. It was
80?
I want to say it was like somewhere between like no, it I mean, it wasn't immediately then that it actually became comprehensible. It's just that's when like signs started to point that way. But I want to say it was somewhere between like it was in the rescue operation part. So I think between chapter 55 and 69, somewhere in there is where it started to feel comprehensible. Like he was actually pulling threads together instead of just creating more.
So I wasn't too far from this actually starting to make some form of sense before I tapped out. Damn.
Yeah, but honestly, I can't blame you for your decision, and I would never for anyone because like it is legitimately kind of painful to read the beginning of this story when you're just
Like normally, okay, so normally with novels, even when they're like not the best, I can get into a flow and I could just like popcorn, like read, like chunk through it quickly. But like because I wasn't having a lot of fun reading what I was reading, right? So it made the novels like act like for the first time in a long time, I was conscious that I was reading a novel, you know, and I've
yeah.
never felt that before. And like I get how some people have a hard time sitting there reading. Like I got it there because it was like it was hard. Like it was hard.
It was. I have very good reading comprehension in my own opinion, and as I was reading this, I was starting to doubt my brain. but but I've explained my ride through this novel because like it is a roller coaster of a book with little payoff until you get towards the end.
I mean,
But
like
the payoff was really fun.
the information got thing seems super cool. Like I actually like that is a dope that is like a that's a Neil Gaiman type god. I feel like that would be a character in American Gods. God of Information.
Yeah,
Like
no, he'd be one of the gods that's too important and too big to be talked about in the story.
yeah. He's not gonna show up, like he's not gonna show up to mess with you losers. But he's
Yeah,
there.
he's up there with Jesus and Buddha. But yeah, I can't in good conscience necessarily recommend this to anyone. But for those that are willing to take the plunge into this insanity, I would really like to hear your thoughts about it, especially if you actually finish Volume 1. But yeah, that's above your head. On Wuxia World and still being translated, so it's free to read.
Yo, if someone has read all of it though, feel free to join the Discord and like ping me and spoil the crap out of the second book for me, so I know what the hell, like if it makes sense or not.
Yeah, I have no idea, and it's still not done. Although it's apparently been on one arc called "The Salvation of a God" that has been going on for like 60 chapters, 70 chapters almost. It's a 69 right now.
Salvation of a Oh my god, 69 chapters of Salvation of a God.
There's like
Oh,
there's like 12
geez.
other arcs, and then 69 chapters of the Salvation of God.
Yeah, I just saw it. Volume 2, Another Plane, Salvation of the God, is like half of Volume 2, it seems. What
I
the
think it's
hell?
more than half at this point.
Why? But I don't.
It's just going over my head, man. That's just
Hold up. Let me read these titles, okay? All right, I'm gonna start like halfway in. Heroes fade like flowers while gods burn brightly. Destruction versus destruction versus destruction. Doomsday Online. Interesting video game. Global leveling. All right. The update is way too fast. 1 through 4.
Four chapters
And then Salvation of a God 1
through 69.
through 69. Oh, you must be kidding. You have to be kidding me right now.
That's how it feels reading this book.
That's insane.
Even when you get to the parts that make sense, you're like, is this really happening? Am I having a fever dream right now, or did someone actually write this? So yeah, if you're brave enough, take the plunge. It's going to be rough to start and maybe rough by the end. I don't know whether this is Stockholm Syndrome and I had to convince myself that the ending was good so that I was...
So it does end on Salvation of a God 69.
Oh, that's actually the end?
That's the end. Nice. It ended. That's the last chapter. Salvation of a God.
Oh, God.
69.
I guess I'm going to have to read volume 2, though.
Oh, no.
I don't even know.
Oh, God.
I
hope it's just like a big Rickroll when you get to the end.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It would feel perfectly in place in this novel.
This was the origin story. The origin story of Rick Astley as he ascended as the information god. The Lord of Memes. Oh my God.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be about it from us this week. Or month or whatever it happens to be before our next episode. Hopefully we'll get back on the swing. But
I'm definitely I want to talk about Super Gene for the next episode. I literally read 2,100 chapters of the novel, and before taking of the 3,000 that exist before taking a break, and I'm just like, honestly, I might I'm going to save it for when we do an episode. But like, I have feelings on that novel. I don't know if that's a tread in the path of heaven or hell on that one.
Oh, it's impressive.
It's both good and bad.
I mean, that could be said of this book too, to be entirely honest. But yeah, no, I've got a few books I really am keen to talk about. I've read all of Dolo Dalu 2 and all of the up to what's translated on Dolo Dalu 3, and I really would like to talk about those at some point, especially how they relate to the first book, because I've come to really love that series, especially because I've become addicted to the 10-cent animation for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's I guess go through our business a little bit. Thank you first of all to James and Yuki Okami, our biggest Patreon supporters, and of course all of the rest of you who are willing to support us financially. A huge shout out to everyone on our Discord that has kept us motivated to keep these coming out and supported us during this kind of rough time, and very rough time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to reach out to us, please feel free to hit us up on Twitter at is it at Tiger Coaster?
At Tiger Coaster. Though I unfortunately I'm still working on getting access to that account, but yeah, at Tiger Coaster. You can also follow me, at DGen God, DGEN God. I'm on Twitter all the time.
Or you can email us at tigerrollercoaster.com.
Yep.
At Gmail, or tigerrollercoaster@gmail.com. Sorry.
Yeah, tiger.rollercoaster@gmail.com, and we'll check out, any email.
But honestly, the best way to get in touch with us is definitely to join our Discord server and try and hit us up there.
Yeah, please do. And it'll be in the description. I'll have that in the description.
But other than that, thank you all for listening. I hope you have enjoyed this novel if you did have the strength of will to read it. And we'll hit you up next time with another one of our, hopefully something we like more than this. Although if it's going to be Super Gene, maybe not. We'll have to hear. I'm vastly curious about this. There's been a lot of discussion about it on the Discord.
Oh yeah, and I thank you. I want to thank everyone who reached out to me directly during this period. And thank you for all of the novel recommendations y'all gave me, because it definitely got me through.
Yeah, no, reading these have been a large part of helping me pass time and keep my mind off things during the recovery. So I look forward to talking about these books with you moving forward. And thank you all.
Y'all have a good one.
Tiger Roller Coaster Productions. Tigers are scary. You try to get off.